Good afternoon, everybody. I am very, very pleased to welcome you all here to BCS on our first ever event to celebrate our first cohort of computing trainee scholars to have completed their training. So if you are a scholar, or a successful scholar in fact, can you put your hand up? So we have 22 scholars with us today, and what I'd like to do is for everybody who's not a scholar to appreciate just how fantastic we think those scholars are with a quick round of applause. Now, the other thing I do have to do is apologise, because Matthew Hancock has been called away on urgent parliamentary business and he's having to debate in the House, and so he is not going to be with us today. Other than that, though, the programme will carry on as previously advertised. At least that meant we had some extra time to go and get some sandwiches, so that was a good thing. I'm going to give you a short 15-minute presentation which tells you something about the scholarships, puts that into context in terms of what's going on around education and computing altogether, and then we will follow on into the other talks from the other presenters. So I am Bill Mitchell, I'm Director of Education here at BCS. So why have we got teaching scholarships? So this is one scheme for computing. There are also schemes for other subjects like physics and maths. The computing scheme is extra specially important because computing is a brand new subject in schools. The purpose of these scholarships is to recruit outstanding people who have the potential to become future leaders of the teaching profession. So no small ask there then. And of course, as well as that, it's to make sure that we have a teaching workforce that's equipped to inspire and motivate children about the concepts in computer science that's now being introduced as part of the computing curriculum. So what's happened so far? This is the first successful cohort that we have. It's the first cohort ever that we've chosen. There were last year 311 applicants for the for the scholarships that we had available, and we were able to award 57 scholarships, which was pretty good considering that our target was to award 50. So we were pleased about that. We're very, very grateful to all of the schools that have helped us run the selection process for those scholars. There were over 100 schools that were involved in that, and there were over 11 major employers that were also part of that selection process, and many of those are here today, and I'm very, very grateful to you for all of the work that you've done. In case you're not familiar with the way we run the scholarship scheme, it's a three-stage process. First of all, we make sure that an applicant actually does know what computer science is by giving them an online test and looking at their CV. We then make sure that they're actually capable of standing up in front of a bunch of school children and inspiring the children. So we send them into a school where they're assessed by the senior leadership team in a classroom situation with real school children. And finally, they go off to one of the employers that are partnering with us on the scheme, where they're given a very rigorous and exacting interview to see whether they have the kind of leadership skills that we're looking for our scholars. So to get one of these scholarships is a major, major achievement, and these are people who really do have the potential to be leaders of the computing teaching profession. The scheme's been so successful that we're very, very pleased that DfE have said that for this year, as in starting now, so 2014-2015 cycle, it's okay if we can award 100 scholarships compared to last year. As well as that, the DfE have also announced that computing as a teacher training subject is to be put on a par with maths and physics. So there are now also bursaries for anybody who wants to do computing as a teacher training course if they have a first class honours degree in computer science. And those bursaries are the same as you would have if you were going on to do maths as a teacher training course. So all of that is absolutely fantastic. The other good news is every single one of the employers that was involved in the scholarship scheme last year enjoyed it so much that they've signed up to do it again next year. Hopefully everybody in the room realises that. And we've got more employers that are wanting to be involved in the scheme as we go forward. These are the list of employers that have actually been actively involved in helping us to recruit scholars. So this is the list of employers that have actually gone out and helped do the selection process for scholars this year. So once again, a huge thank you to all of you for being involved in the scheme. Without you, we could not have made it possible. So let's take a step back. Let's think again about why it is we're actually having scholarships for computing. Well, the DfE have decided to introduce computing as part of the new school curriculum. and it's going to be a statutory part of the school curriculum, starting from year 1 in primary school, going all the way through to the end of Key Stage 4. So from the age of 5, from this September, children will be taught about computing. And computing means computer science together with digital literacy. Digital literacy is more or less the sort of stuff that used to be taught in the previous ICT curriculum. Computer science is the new subject discipline that's being introduced. So for pretty much all the schools in the country, we are asking them to teach a brand new school subject that none of the teachers or senior leadership team were themselves ever taught when they were in school, or have any experience of through a qualification, in the most part. Now, in the past, we have had the ICT curriculum. That was essentially focused on teaching around particular software packages and using the computer to achieve particular goals. And it was more along the lines of focusing on technology and the skills that go along with it. The difference now with the new curriculum is that it includes not just that previous stuff through digital literacy, it also includes computer science. And the big thing about computer science is it is a discipline. It is like physics, it is like maths, it is like English. It's based on fundamental principles, concepts, ideas, techniques, methods that will still be valid in 30 or 40 years' time. The sorts of ideas that underpin the internet and the World Wide Web at the moment were first thought of back in the 60s. And they're still the same fundamental principles underneath all of that technology now as they were then. The only thing that's changed is the hardware and the technology that we all get to play with and enjoy. So it's very, very important that children now going into schools learn not just about physics and chemistry and maths, but they also learn about computer science as part of this computing curriculum. So what's in the new curriculum? So the new part, as I say, is computer science. The digital literacy part is pretty much what people were already doing, and schools are actually very good at it. Now, if you look at the programme of study for computing in the statutory curriculum for schools for all the different subjects, you'll find that you have all of this stuff. Now, I've condensed down 4 pages of bullet points in the curriculum down to just 2 paragraphs. But there are all sorts of new concepts and ideas around algorithms and data structures and architectures and communication and coordination. And students are expected to do a whole lot more than they ever were before. The primary thing that we're trying to teach our children to do now is we're trying to teach them computational thinking skills. So what are computational thinking skills? Basically, the idea is we're trying to explain to somebody what are the kind of meta skills you need to take a messy, complicated, partially defined, real-world problem and turn it into a form that a mindless computer can tackle on your behalf without any extra advice or support or hints from you. In other words, to do it autonomously. Those are quite sophisticated skills, and those are actually extremely useful, whatever walk of life you're going to go into. So we're teaching children about computing and about computer science because it's going to be extremely useful for them in the digital world that they are now going to inhabit. So it's not just a subject that's aimed at children that are going to go off and become in the IT profession or go off and become scientists or engineers. It's extremely important for any properly educated digital citizen of the 21st century to understand what computational thinking is and what all these principles and concepts are that go with that. And that is the aim of this new curriculum. So let me just give you one little example, because otherwise it becomes extremely abstract and boring. The curriculum says 5-year-olds must be taught algorithms. That can sound terribly scary, especially if you're in the IT business and you think an algorithm is an NP-complete problem for doing the travelling salesman problem or some such thing. I don't know about you, but I can remember when I was a small child sharing out a pile of sweets with my big sister. And my big sister was very, very good at dividing the sweets into equal piles where her pile was always bigger than mine. But there you go. Now in the maths curriculum, we have the notion of actually teaching children about fractions from the age of 5. So they should, from the age of 5, start to be introduced to the idea of a half, a third, a quarter, etc. Well, how do you teach that to somebody aged 5? Well, most 5-year-olds will get this idea that if you have a pile of sweets and you want to share it with your friend, a very, very straightforward, fair way of sharing that pile is to go 1 for you, 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for me. When you've stopped, you grab your pile and you stuff it in your face as fast as you can. But what is that? That is an iterative algorithm. That's a loop. That's a, actually, which way have I done it? That's an until loop with a terminating condition. So that one example can very easily get across to a 5-year-old, the idea of looping, repeating, iteration with a terminating condition. What else have you just shown that child? You've just shown that child how to divide a pile of sweets into 2 more or less equal parts. Well, that's division by 2. So we've introduced them at the same time to the idea of a half. I'm fairly sure if you had a bunch of fairly interested children and you said, supposing we now don't just have you and your friend, you have you and 2 friends, could you come up with a way of equally sharing the sweets between the 3 of you? I'm pretty sure they would go, oh, right, yeah, it's 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for you, 1 for me, 1 for you, 1 for you. Do you know what? They've just generalised the algorithm from working for 2 people to working for 3 people. They could almost certainly make that work for 4, 5, any number of people. And if you've got them probably by year 6 or 7, in fact, before that, I should think by year 4 or 5, you could get them to write down what the steps are in fairly sharing out the pile of sweets between any number of children. And here's one particular attempt. What's interesting about this? So it says, sit all your friends in a circle, including you, and repeat the following till there are no sweets left. Repeat the following until there are no sweets left. So we've got one repetition here. We've got one iteration, one loop structure already. And then on the next part, it says, go round the circle, 1 friend at a time, give each friend a sweet and say 1 for you, then take 1 for yourself and say 1 for me. So you've now got another repetition inside the main repetition. So already for children who are only in years 4 and 5, you've got them introduced to the idea of iterating something and then inside that, iterating something else. That's called a nested loop. This is a very sophisticated concept, but this is the sort of thing that children can understand very, very easily because it's within the context that they can get hold of and it's something they really, really care about. Where do these ideas come from? Well, that idea is one I've stolen from a teacher in a primary school. And without teachers in primary schools and secondary schools that are creating these sorts of teaching resources, computing is just going to die. It is not going to be a subject that anyone will get excited about. So it's extremely important that new teachers and existing teachers are given the capability to produce those sorts of teaching resources, those sort of classroom resources, and they understand how to use them to explain to children the ideas, the principles, and the concepts that go with the new curriculum. Mostly the new curriculum is not about teaching people to code. It's actually teaching people about fundamental ideas and concepts. So what do we know? We actually know that from lots of primary school teachers and secondary school teachers that we talk to that bring up examples like that about how to share sweets and how to tie that into other parts of their curriculum, that when you do it right, children right from the age of 5 are good at computing. They can do sophisticated things like while statements, no problem. And they enjoy it. They absolutely love doing that sort of thing. And also from what we've learned from talking to teachers is that children actually improve in terms of learning in other subjects, in literacy and numeracy particularly. So the kids, when they get the right teachers and the right environment and the right context, they lap this stuff up and it really works for them. However, back in March we did a survey. I mean, you guys have already read what's on the rest of the slide, right? We did a survey of existing teachers. We had, I've forgotten actually how many we talked to, but there was quite a lot. It was a couple of thousand, and about 3/4 of them at the time said they really didn't feel that comfortable with the new curriculum. And the reason for that is that of our existing workforce around ICT, most of them haven't got a formal qualification in computing. So what they're having to do is find themselves different avenues for getting CPD in terms of computing, and they're struggling to do that. So if you do the numbers, given that there are something like 250,000 teachers in secondary school and primary school, all of whom are going to have something to do with this new computing curriculum, we're looking at something like 135,000 teachers around the country who are going to jolly well need some help. So finally, let me just tell you a couple of other things that the BCS is doing. We're not the only group that are working in this space of supporting teachers. There are lots and lots and lots of other groups that are doing fantastic stuff, like Code.org or Code Academy or Code Club. But since this is a BCS event, I'm going to tell you about the BCS stuff that we're doing. So what used to happen previously when something got changed in the curriculum? It used to be that the Department for Education would roll out a massive national programme to support teachers. The new philosophy is completely different. The new philosophy is that the Department for Education should set the policy framework, but the rest of us, and I do mean us in this room and outside of this room, we're the ones who get to do the work. We're the ones who actually get to support the teachers, help them to produce teaching resources for the classroom, help them to get access to CPD that's going to be important. I actually think this is a tremendously positive change. I think, working with companies like Toshiba, like Google, like IBM, like BT, etc., Working with them, working with the universities, getting them all together and working with the schools is by far and away the best way of achieving a sustainable programme of training for teachers. Of the scholars in the room, who is not in computing at school? Good, that was the answer I was hoping for. So you're all in the computing at school group, fantastic. The main way that the BCS is supporting the new curriculum and introducing it to schools is through CAS, Computing at School. Of the employers in the room, who is not in CAS? Fantastic, so preaching to the converted. So the point about CAS is to create a national network of local communities, communities of professional practice, where teachers get together regularly, share ideas about what works and what doesn't work in the classroom, encourage and support one another, so that those teachers are part of a national network which is creating a positive, virtuous cycle of improving what goes on in the classroom. And as you can see on the slide, something like 13,000 people are involved in CAS at the moment, and about 80% of those are teachers. So that means practically every single secondary school in the country is glued into the CAS network. The other thing that we're doing, thanks to a grant from the Department for Education, is we're running a network of excellence in computer science teaching. This is just about done its first year, and it's there to create formal links between schools and universities so that computer science departments and education departments in universities can link in with their local schools and help them to provide CPD. The big thing about this is it requires a head teacher to formally sign up their school to being part of it. Because one of the things we found with CAS is that it's great for supporting the teachers, but often the teachers then don't get onto the radar of the head teacher in their school, and it's incredibly important that this brand new curriculum is seen by a head teacher in a school as a priority. So one of the most important things that this does, apart from helping to create CPD, is to raise awareness of computing at that senior leadership team level. And we've got 80 universities involved in this and over 1,000 schools. The example I was showing you earlier of sharing sweets between children is something, is the kind of example we're putting together for the Barefoot Computing Project. This is a project which, again, funded by the Department for Education. It's run by BT, and it's there to create resources to use in the classroom for primary school teachers that explain how you can improve children's literacy, numeracy, or understanding of science by actually teaching about computing at the same time. That's just kicking off at the moment. If you're an employer that's thinking, gosh, how do I get into schools and actually help primary school teachers understand what the new curriculum is, then we'd love to hear from you, because we're going to have volunteers from companies such as yourselves going into the schools and running these workshops to show the primary school teachers great and exciting ideas about computing. Finally, and then I'm going to shut up, we've got a project called the Countdown to Computing Project. The idea here is to provide to a willing and enthusiastic teacher in a school a shrink-wrap CPD course that they can run with their colleagues within their own school, and it will enable them to design, develop and deliver a term's worth of computing material and how to understand how to continually refresh that material year on year. And we're very, very grateful to Microsoft for a very, very generous grant, and to the DFE for topping that up. So we've got a brand new curriculum hitting schools in September. It's not just a brand new curriculum, it's a brand new subject. This is like we hadn't taught physics before, we sort of decided that's what we were going to do. It's that big a change. And it can't possibly happen without outstanding teachers in the classroom. So this scholarship scheme is hugely, hugely important, because this is how we are getting some of the very best and brightest people that have that potential to be leaders of the teaching profession into the classroom teaching computing, and it couldn't happen without the employers. And I'm very much looking forward to this next round of recruitment and recruiting even more outstanding people to teach computing in the classroom.